Welcome, Trick Trackers. I'm Scott Taggart, and I've created a series of videos to walk you through the creation and use of the TrickTracks custom navigation maps for Garmin GPS devices. I'm making these videos from the world headquarters of the TrickTrack Development Labs. Let's get started. Welcome back, Trick Trackers. Let's dive in and make your first custom TrickTracks map. This video will walk you through the creating of a custom TrickTracks map using the TrickTracks website. I'll not be discussing the advanced features such as how to create custom targets as shown in the first video, and I'll not discuss configuration options. That's for a later video. So let's walk you through the mechanics of creating your first map before we dive in too far. First, we need a basic GPX file. With a basic GPX file, you can create a very usable TrickTracks map. You can learn the more advanced features later. TrickTracks usually does the right thing with your GPX file, even if you don't know how to use the advanced features. The first step is obtain a GPX or KML file. First, please note that TrickTracks creates maps from tracks only and not routes. I can't explain the distinction here, so you'll have to look elsewhere, but basically tracks are breadcrumbs that describe a path, or not a route, but essentially a route, and a route is not that. You can get files from a friend, a ride leader, online, etc. There's plenty of tools online to create GPX track files. You can use Garmin Basecamp, you can use Ride with GPS website, Google Earth, Google My Maps, and many others. All right, let's jump into using the TrickTracks website. First, as I mentioned in a previous video, we need to go to tricktracks.org, and in your browser you can type in tricktracks.org and hit enter, and that will take you to this page, and then you can click the Garmin Custom Map Maker to jump to this page. You could bookmark this if you like. That way you don't have to keep typing it in. There's 4 basic things to creating a Garmin TrickTracks map. One is to enter your access code. Step 2 is configuration. Step 3 is dropping a GPX or other file onto this box. And then step 4 is looking at the results. But let's first go over these big buttons along the top line. First is you can get help. You can get to help videos, which are basically these YouTube videos. You can also get extensive written help for those who like to read and look at pictures, static pictures, and that kind of thing. If you click on this bugs button, you'll see any bugs that we know about. You can click on what's new to see anything we've changed in the past. These are generally don't get updated very often because the TrickTracks site is pretty static. And then finally, your file security. There's a discussion in here of how your files are processed, what's kept, what's not kept, what's logged, that kind of thing. And then finally, there's this button to get a free access code. So if you don't have an access code, let's jump in and we'll look at how you get one. So click on this button, enter your name, and then enter your email, and then hit submit. Now, please note that there's a number of sites, email domains that don't accept our emails to you. They consider our emails spam, and there's nothing we can do about it. I've listed a few here: me.com, iCloud, apple.com, etc. So if you try to get a free access code and you don't see it come in your email, please contact us directly at contact@tricktracks.org. You can click this button down here to get an email. So let's assume for the minute you've entered this, you've submitted, and you've got your access code. But before I jump into entering your access code, I forgot you can also donate to us. If that strikes your fancy, click here and you can send us a few bucks. So now that you've got your access code, enter it here, and it's usually going to be a 5-letter kind of randomized looking code. You can save that code, write it down somewhere. If you forget it, you can re-enter your email and it'll get sent back to you. The browser will remember that code even across a system reboot. So enter your access code. You can enter it once. It'll generally stay around. Then you would configure, but we are not going to do that in this video. The next step is to drop your navigation file, usually GPX file, onto this green box. So over here, I've got a simple GPX file. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to drag it across, and you'll notice the green box highlights. So I'm going to let off on that, and you'll see that it says processing, and then the conversion of that file is completed. And if there's a problem, it'll say so down here. Usually this turns green. All right, now that the file has completed processing, you'll see a green conversion completed message here. If it hasn't worked, this will be red and give you a warning. Now, the file gets put into your browser download area, and that will vary based on your settings, your browser, and things like that. Sometimes also, because of the file type that TrickTracks generates, that the file ends with .img, that file is considered sometimes to be a virus file by Windows, possibly the Mac. Just ignore that. Just accept the file. There's nothing in a TrickTracks file that can corrupt any system. It's simply a Garmin map. So on my Chrome, I'm going to click here to see my downloads, and it shows my download file with the name TrickTracks. Then the file name was that I submitted was 2025 TrickTracks YouTube videos. And then there's a date and timestamp, and finally the extension, which is the .img I mentioned. On Chrome, I'll click on this folder to go to the Downloads folder. And here's my file. I had some others in front of it, so just ignore those. And we would take this file now, and we would copy it to our device, which I'll discuss in the next video. But essentially, you can copy this anywhere you like to save it, and ultimately you want to download it in your device. So for my purposes, I'll copy it from the download folder into the folder where I had my GPX file, and now I've got it safely over here. Let me show you what happens if you submit a file that's not acceptable. I've got a file named bad file GPX here, which is just filled with garbage. I'm going to submit that, and you'll see request error, blah, 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 blah. Usually you'll see this because the contents of the file, not the name, but the contents, does not contain a valid GPX file or contents. And sometimes you'll submit a GPX file that has routes in it, but not tracks, and that will cause this error as well. Let me discuss a few limitations of what TrickTracks cannot do. Just a reminder that TrickTracks create what we call a fat line from GPX tracks, not routes. The file size that you can submit to TrickTracks is limited. I forget, I think it says here, I think it's 25 megabytes. That's a huge file. I would never expect to see it. Sometimes people submit large KML files from Google Earth. They're usually submitting a map. That won't work. We don't convert maps, we convert tracks. There's no limits, current limits on how many files you can convert, but we do caution you abusers and spammers might get blocked. The other thing I should note is that when you drop a file here, you don't select multiple files and try to drop them here. It will not work. You need to select one file at a time, drop it, and then wait till the file completes or gives you an error, and then you can drop another one. So if you have 10 files to complete, just to convert, just drop them one at a time here and wait till they download to your browser. This is a supplementary video that is for Zumo users. When I was talking about configuration, I said we'd skip it. I need to point out something that's important for Zumo users as opposed to the old Montana users, and that's that the chevron lines for Zumos, if you don't configure for the Zumo, the chevron lines will come out very flat looking. They won't look very pointed. So all you need to do to fix that is to click the configure button, click on tracks, click on this track arrow style, and select this Zumo option. And then you can collapse all the configuration if you want and go about dragging and dropping your GPX files to TrickTracks and taking the output image files and loading them onto your Zumo as is discussed in the video about loading. The TrickTracks file will have the word Zumo in it to signal to you that you created a Zumo type TrickTracks map. So real quick, configure, this is for Zumo users, configure, track arrow style, pull it down, select Zumo, and that will stick with your browser across reboots and all that. The default when you come in here will look like this. It won't say anything. Just pull this down and select Zumo. Now that you have a custom TrickTracks map, it's time to load it into your Garmin device and take a look at it. We'll do that in the next video.